And the Gaza war now expanding across the region. The U.S. just struck down another Houthi anti-ship missile in the 7th round of strikes against the terrorist group since last Thursday. Defense officials at both the State Department and the Pentagon have been quick to emphasize in recent days that these are all defensive strikes. For more on this, let's bring in retired Colonel Joe Buccino. He joins me now, a former spokesperson for CENTCOM. Colonel, first off, what do you make of this sort of late in the game military response by the DoD to Houthi rebels in Yemen who have been firing strikes on U.S. forces across the Middle East now for the better part of 2 months?
What I make of it, Jillian, is that it's not working. These strikes, the Houthi strikes continue. The Houthi strikes on commercial shipping continue. And if you think about it this way, Jillian, this is a motorcycle gang in one of the poorest countries on earth, a failed state in Yemen that's run out of water, and they are holding global commerce at risk. In fact, they're contributing to global inflation. So these strikes are not working. Iran can continue to replenish the stocks there in Yemen, as they have been for almost a decade when the Saudis were bombing the Houthis. And so this tit for tat back and forth is going to continue.
To that point, take a listen to National Security Council spokesman John Kirby yesterday in the White House briefing.
This morning, U.S. forces conducted 3 successful self-defense strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. This is the 4th preemptive action that the U.S. military has taken in the past week against Houthi missile launchers that were ready to launch attacks. In this case, anti-ship missiles. CENTCOM Central Command will have more details on this a little bit later, but as you know, there are U.S. Navy ships in the Red Sea as well as international shipping. These actions were, I want to stress again, done in self-defense.
Now, when it comes to strikes on Houthi operatives, the common refrain out of the White House the last couple of weeks have been these are defensive moves, going to great lengths to emphasize that in press briefings. But then they also describe these strikes on Houthi targets as preemptive. How can you square that?
I cannot, and you know, John Kirby's a great friend of mine, a great patriot and a great mentor for me, but these strikes are all defensive in nature. In other words, we're knocking their missiles out of the sky and then hitting their missile sites, their radar sites on the coast of Yemen.
So in short, they're not preemptive.
They're not preemptive, and they're also a little bit meaningless, because the more we strike these coastal battery sites, the more we hit their missiles, the more we hit their radars, the more Iran flushes those things back in, pushes that stuff back in. And so it's not really having the effect that we would like. You know, the administration does not want to raise up, does not want to escalate this thing, and doesn't want to widen the war. The problem is we've got to do something about the Red Sea to get commercial shipping through there.
So the Houthis may have started out, as you mentioned, to go as a gang, but they're now very well financed by Iran, the Iranian government. The Trump administration had designated these people a foreign terrorist organization. It's a designation that President Biden removed when he came to office 3 years ago. This week, interestingly, the administration redesignated them with a sort of lesser label, SGDT. It's a sort of it's been described by experts as like a watered down version of a terrorist designation. What do you make, if anything, of that decision? Does it make sense to you?
To be fair, the Trump administration labeled them as a terrorist group only at the very end. For most of Trump's time in office, they were not labeled. The Houthis were not labeled as a terrorist group. These things are basically meaningless. Both of these labels are basically meaningless. You're talking about economic sanctions and economic holds, and it's not as though the Houthis own stock in the New York Stock Exchange, okay? So these things don't really have some great deal of power over the Houthis. We're kind of went with a half measure here.
Okay.
We went, as you identified, they were not identified as an FTO, foreign terrorist organization, so people can't be prosecuted all over the world for contributing to the Houthis. Nonetheless, these things really are, it's more of a political label and a messaging aspect to this.
Now, there is reporting out there this week that under the new designation, Houthi terrorists could still potentially apply for U.S. visas and travel to the United States. I asked the State Department spokesman about that 2 days ago. Take a listen to what he said.
I don't think you should expect that any Houthi operative who applies for a visa to travel into the United States is going to see that visa approved anytime in the near future, to say the least.
I asked him by what mechanism they could guarantee that. He said he'd have to get back to us. Do you feel confident that Houthi operatives won't be able to make their way to the United States?
I do not, just because we don't know who in Yemen is part of the Houthis, who in Yemen is not part of the Houthis, who's supporting them, who is part of their large group, who's part of their financing network. You know, the Houthis have kind of spread out all aspects of life in Yemen. They're the garbage man. They keep the water running. They teach kids in school. It's not just the military component in Yemen that's part of the Houthis. So it's hard to know in Yemen who is contributing to the Houthis, who's supporting the Houthis, and who is an actual Houthi operative. Under this half measure that you identified, the half measure, not the full FTO, Foreign Terrorist Organization, there really is no full mechanism to identify who's a Houthi and to stop them from coming into this country.
Well, that's alarming. Colonel Buccino, thanks so much for coming in today, joining us live on set. It's great to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
You bet.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.